Largely peaceful protests continued in major U.S. cities Wednesday, where tens of thousands defied curfews and the threat of the coronavirus to express outrage over racism and police violence. Earlier this week, U.S. President Donald Trump threatened to invoke a law which would allow him to authorize active duty forces to quell protests without governor's consent. Challenging the president's threat, Defense Secretary Mark Esper said active duty forces should only be used in the most urgent and dire of situations.
We are not in one of those situations now. I do not support invoking the Insurrection Act.
Wednesday morning, Esper ordered 200 active duty soldiers to return to their home base after 2 days of peaceful demonstrations in Washington, but abruptly overturned the decision just hours later after a meeting at the White House. Esper also distanced himself from a malign visit by Trump to a church near the White House to take a picture with a Bible. After police dispersed the crowd with flash grenades and chemical sprays. The move and his overall handling of protests have hurt Trump's approval rating.
We're in the middle of social unrest as intense as we've seen since the 1960s. This is not a good atmosphere and environment for a president to run for re-election. So he's going to have to do a lot of things to get back on track and perhaps to become the front runner again, because as of today, he is not the front runner.
The unrest was triggered by the death of George Floyd, a black man who died after a white police officer pinned his knee on Floyd's neck for more than 8 minutes. All living American former presidents, including Jimmy Carter, George W. Bush, and Bill Clinton, have voiced condemnation. In a virtual town hall, former President Barack Obama urged mayors to review the use of force in their cities.
That was a far more representative cross-section of America out on the streets, peacefully protesting, and who felt moved to do something because of the injustices that they had seen.
The protests have highlighted multiple systems of racial inequity in the country.
And that's connected to housing, it's connected to employment, it's connected to public schools. We often talk about public school to prison pipeline. So it's not just about sentencing or bad policing or police cameras. There's so many people out in the streets because something is fundamentally wrong and broken in the system for millions of Americans.
The charges for Minnesota police officer Derek Chauvin have been elevated to second-degree murder, defined as intentional murder that lacks premeditation. 3 officers who were on the scene have been charged with aiding and abetting the murder.